Hello students and my dear friends, I'm Dr. Shalini Shukla and today is 30th of September 2021, Thursday. Inspiration of the day is what you get by achieving your goals is not important as what you become by achieving your goals. In today's discussion, we are going to cover these articles. So let's start with article number 1 given on page number 1. Gas prices, power outage, worsen, inflation worries. In yesterday's news analysis discussion, we have discussed about the dovish approach by world major central bank. It means after the interest rate hike by world's major central bank and tapering of bond buying by US Federal Reserve, inflation is one of the latest worry for market and the world economy. As we have discussed, apart from RBI, other major central banks have basically adopted the dovish approach and they have shown concern towards a rising interest rate or rising inflation. And apart from these two events, world economy and market participants are worried about higher inflation. And what are the factors that are constituting or increasing the inflation now these days? This particular fear of higher inflation has been worsened by the sharp rise in the natural gas prices, especially in Europe, and power outage in UK and China, apart from it increasing crude oil prices. So these three factors are actually increasing the worries of world economy and market because of the inflation. And if we talk about the Brent crude oil prices, Brent crude oil prices are nearly 20% in the past month and hit a 3 years high of dollar 80 per barrel. And if you remember, we have discussed that number of experts and economists have forecasted that this particular dollar 80 barrel is going to be increased up to dollar 90 barrel in upcoming months. And obviously dollar 80 barrel is one of the threshold that negatively impact the emerging economy and especially those economy whose crude oil requirement are highly dependent on import crude oil. Just like इंडिया की जो मैक्सिमम क्रूड ऑयल की रिक्वायरमेंट है वो कहाँ से पूरी होती है? वो इम्पोर्ट से पूरी होती है क्योंकि इंडिया बहुत ज़्यादा प्रोड्यूस नहीं करता क्रूड ऑयल को. तो दैट इज़ वाई countries like India, those who are heavily dependent on the imported crude oil, for them this price rate or this threshold price is definitely going to have the negative impact at a time when economy is recovering, because increased crude oil prices may lead to inflation into other allied sector, other related sector. And now these days, if we talk about the Indian economic situation, because of the high liquidity in the market, inflation is also increasing. On the other hand, crude oil prices, sharp rise in natural gas prices, power outage, all these factors are also constituting increase in inflation. So that is a very much worrisome situation for Indian economy after post-pandemic recovery. Apart from inflation worries, this increase in crude oil prices is also forcing the oil marketing companies for what? For rising the fuel prices and leading to higher retail or consumer inflation, as I discussed. And as per the analyst, this increased oil prices or increased consumer durables or consumer goods may further decrease the or decline the corporate margin. Why? Because at the recovery phase, corporates cannot afford to lead or cannot increase the price of their products or their goods and services. So what they have to do in order to sustain in the competitive environment? Definitely, they will decrease their profit margin, and that will further affect the performance of the company. And this is the graph of historical trend in Brent crude oil prices and inflation in India. And this graph is all about the average annual inflation in United States and India. So this particular graph tells us that with the increase in the Brent crude oil prices, how inflation fluctuates in India. So this particular black bar indicates the prices of Brent oil, and this orange bar indicates a movement of inflation. It is basically the inflation graph. So as we can see, as the Brent crude oil price increase, the inflation also increase in a very same direction. So it means we can say there is a positive correlation between these two factors. If Brent crude oil prices will increase, or if the prices of Brent oil increase, the inflation will follow in a very same direction. Or we can say inflation will also increase in India. If we compare the inflation increase in India with the US economy, with the Brent crude oil prices fluctuation, we can easily see that annual inflation in United States, or the price rise in United States, is much faster in comparison to India. And here one thing we need to keep in consideration, here we are talking about the consumer inflation. It means CPI. Whatever graph we have seen here, it is all based on the consumer price index, CPI, consumer price index inflation, or CPI inflation rate, not the WPI or any other. Now let us see the article number 2 that is given on page number 4. Rupees 100 trillion Gati Shakti plan launch likely next month. So most likely center government is going to launch the ambitious 100 trillion National Master Plan. For what? For multimodal connectivity, and it is also known as Gati Shakti. And if you see the name, you can easily identify this particular scheme, or this particular master plan, or this particular program is associated with the transportation or the connectivity. And why government is launching this particular multimodal connectivity national master plan? Because of, or in order to increase or accelerate the economic growth by building the infrastructure. And if you see the government approach since last 2 to 3 years, you can easily identify that government is spending a lot of revenue on infrastructure development. And among all those plans and program, National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity is one of the ambitious plan that will have the outlay of 100 trillion rupees. And by seeing the number or the amount of outlay, you can actually imagine that how much impact this particular plan is going to have on economy, apart from infrastructure development. And for that, several round of interministerial consultation has already been done, and finally cabinet has prepared a note, and note is ready as per the few government official, and approval from the cabinet is expected by the early October or next month. So the master plan spread headed by Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. So this particular department is spearheading this particular scheme or program or master plan, and definitely this is going to boost the construction work, and by integrating number of department, number of ministries and key mode of transportation, just like road, railway, air, waterway. So definitely, and because of the involvement of number of department, number of ministries, there was a rounds of interministerial consultation and deliberation before finalizing this particular program. And as per the different officials, as per the people aware about this matter, this particular program or this particular master plan will reduce the logistic cost beside improving the industrial productivity. And for that, one portal is also being launched, and that particular portal will actually integrate it, or it will integrate with existing portal and already existing data of key infrastructure ministries. So digital technology will also be used for this particular master program or master plan for increasing the or integrating the multimodal connectivity. So this Gati Shakti scheme is very important for your upcoming exam. Why? Because it is also going to increase certain other economic parameter. Just like this particular Gati Shakti program will increase the industrial productivity. Apart from it, it will reduce the logistic cost. Being so ambitious scheme, this will also increase the employment generation. Apart from employment generation, this will also increase the infrastructure development. Apart from infrastructure development, this will also increase the connectivity between the two places, and definitely we all know connectivity leads to increase in business. So business and sales will increase, and apart from this particular increase in sale, business organization will also get benefited from reduced logistic cost and increased connectivity that may eventually leads to increase in their business activities, increase in their sale. So these are the few benefits that could be realized if this particular Gati Shakti scheme is launched or implemented successfully. And for leveraging the other benefits, the government is also using the digital technology. So digital technology or information technology will bring certain other benefits into this particular program. Now let us see article number 3, that is given on page number 6. Cabinet approves ECGC listing capital infusion of 4,400 crore. In a media briefing after Cabinet Committee, the Union Commerce and Industry Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal has informed that Cabinet has approved the infusion of what? 4,400 crore into state-owned credit insurance provider ECGC Limited for over period of 5 years that will start for financial year 22. What is ECGC? So ECGC Limited, that was previously known as Export Credit Guarantee Corporation of India. Export Credit Guarantee Corporation of India, that was basically founded on 30th of July 1957. And if you see the establishment date, that is 1957, you can easily say that it is one of the oldest initiative of government of India. And the idea for initiating this particular ECGC was basically come under the expertise of Mr. T.S. Kapoor. Mr. T.S. Kapoor, the Finance Minister of India in the cabinet of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And the very first policy was issued at the time of 14th October 1957. And it was in the year 2014. It was in the year 2014 when ECGC, Export Credit Guarantee Corporation of India Limited, is simply renamed as ECGC Limited. And by seeing its name, we can simply identify, we can simply understand what is the function of this particular ECGC. So apart from setting a base in providing credit insurance support to the Indian exporter, this particular company has also ventured into various other financial services. So it is not likely that ECLG only provide the insurance services to the Indian exporter. This particular company or this particular organization is also involved in providing other types of financial and administrative services to the exporter. So it started with the aim of covering the risk of exporting on credit to strengthen the export promotion. But now, today, it stands as the 7th largest company in the world in terms of export credit insurance market. Now, you can imagine the impact of this ECGC. Initially, this ECGC was incorporated just to increase or just to advance the export from India by simply giving the credit risk insurance and related services for the exporters. And over the period of time, it has designated different export credited risk insurance product to cater to the need of or changing need of Indian exporters. So basically, this ECGC work for exporters in tandem with the commercial bank. So we can say there is an integration between ECGC, commercial bank and exporter, and all basically try to promote the export in India. So this was a brief introduction about ECGC. Now come back to the news. So Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved the infusion of approximately 4,400 crore for what? For state owned, not center owned, state owned credit guarantee insurance provided, that is ECGC Limited, for upcoming 5 year. Apart from it, this particular cabinet committee has also approved the listing of the company on domestic bourses, which is likely to take place in the next fiscal year. And if we talk about the distribution of funds, the 500 crore will be infused in the current fiscal year, that is fiscal year 22, and the another 500 crore will be infused in upcoming financial, that is financial year 23, and this will be continue for upcoming 5 years. Or as when the requirement arise, the remainder will be pumped in. So depending on the exporter's requirement and requirement of the other industry in order to promote the export. And on listing of this ECGC Limited on Indian brochure or Indian stock market will further require other clarification. But as per the minister, as far as the quantum of listing is concerned, all of these will be decided by the alternative mechanism in due course of time. So listing of ECGC into domestic stock market will actually depend on the other mechanism and will be decided in the future course of action. But as per the few economists and as per the few individual, this particular listing or proposed listing of ECGC will definitely unlock the true value of the company and promote the people ownership by encouraging the public participation into the equity holding of the company. So as ECGC will or as ECGC get listed into Indian stock market, they can raise more fund, people ownership will increase, and definitely that will encourage the people participation into this company. So listing of on domestic bourses will bring result in more transparency and more accountability for this export promotion company. And definitely company can increase or mobilize the fresh capital just by issuing the IPO or subsequent follow on offers, that is FPO. And if it increase the IPO and FPO, it will definitely increase the liability from 1 trillion to 2.0 trillion for upcoming financial year, that is financial year 26. So that all these measures are simply to support the ECGC so that ECGC now these days can track or can actually leverage or actually exploit the increasing opportunities of export in post-pandemic era. Why? Because we have discussed anti-China sentiments are being developed. Companies or the MNCs have realized that diversification of the supply chain is one of the very important factor. They cannot rely on one country or the companies belonging to one country only. That is why major MNCs, big companies, are now diversifying their supply chain, especially related to raw materials and manufacturing good. And into that, India can play a very important role. And that is why India is actually taking all the reforms, whether it is a productivity link incentive scheme or ECGC support or any other sort of spatial economic zone establishment. So India is taking all the measures to become the exporter or net exporter. Now let us see few other news clips. Invesco move NCLT against Z's board. So Invesco Developing Market Fund on Wednesday moved to the National Company Law Tribunal forward against GST Entertainment Enterprises and three of its directors, including the chief executive officers and managing director. For what? For not calling the extraordinary AGM, extraordinary general meeting EGM of the company as sought by the US fund. So simply the case of Amazon, Reliance and Future Group has been followed here. They have also moved to the court NCLT and they said that G has not called off any extraordinary general meeting for the proposal of selling its assets to some other company. The fund, which holds approximately 18% stake in Z Entertainment Enterprises, that is ZEAL, is seeking the reconstitution of the board by induction of its nominee. So number of top executive has been made responsible for this particular not holding of EGM and the hearing is due on Thursday. So let's see what decision NCLT will take, and this is the trending up, this is the share value of Z Entertainment after this particular petition, and we can see the decrease in the price or the share value of Z Entertainment or ZEAL. Now let us see the next clip. AI reservation price likely to be fixed at rupees 15k to 20k crore. So the government has considered the future cash flow projection of Air India and its brand value as well as the intangible assets like bilateral rights and slots in the foreign airport to set the reserve price for Air India as per the sources, and government is fixing the threshold price or the reserve price approximately 15,000 crores to 20,000 crores. So considering all the assets, all the brand value, cash flow projections, intangible assets, government actually pegging this value at 15,000 to 20,000 crore. It is a lower bid amount, may not halt the disinvestment process, but definitely it is the minimum value or minimum reserve price that the government is anticipating by selling this venture AI. AI is Air India. And for this, government actually anticipate or expect the financial bidders. Who are those financial bidders? Kindly name those financial bidder into the comment section. So government is actually expect the financial bidders to at least match this reserve price, but it may still go ahead with the disinvestment process even if the bid quoted is lower than the reserve price as per the government of India and as the few official. And if we talk about the other plans or other financial conditions or other financial liabilities of Air India, so Air India has accumulated the loss of more than 70,000 crore as of March 31st, 2020, and government has to infuse about 650 crore per month into airlines if disinvestment exercise fails as per the government officials. अगर ये disinvestment नहीं होता है, दोनों ही companies जिन्होंने bidding करी अगर वो नहीं ready होती हैं इस particular deal के लिए, so in that case government has to invest approximately 650 crores monthly into this particular venture, and government has changed the bidding parameters allowing the potential buyer to quote enterprise value instead of the equity value in order to get the better response. So airline currently has 4,486 domestic and 2,738 international slot across the Indian and international airports. So you can imagine the impact of Air India. So definitely government wants to leverage all those rights of Air India before going for disinvestment. Now let us look at into the next article, that is MSME boost, government widens the scope of ECLGS ahead of festive season. So in order to increase the utilization of emergency credit line guarantee scheme, that is not ECGC, that is emergency credit line guarantee scheme ECLGS, and provide support to small business ahead of the festive season. So government is basically anticipating the boost in the demand, and in order to support, in order to fulfill that demand, or for fulfilling that demand, in order to to support the MSMEs, government is actually increasing the utilization of what? In this particular credit guarantee scheme, ECLGC. And under this, government has increased or widened the scope of this particular scheme, especially for MSME. And in this scope, government is increasing the borrowing limit for availing the loans. Now MSMEs are allowed to take more loan under this particular scheme, so that they can satisfy, they can actually serve the demand of festive season, that is in upcoming months. So ECLG scheme has been extended by 6th month to March 31st financial year 22, or till guaranteed of rupees 4.5 trillion are issued or exhausted. या तो ये मार्च 31 तक की डेट आ जाए, या जो 4.5 करोड़ का जो टारगेट सेट किया है ट्रिलियन का जो टारगेट सेट किया है 4.5 ट्रिलियन का, वो सारा पैसा डिस्बर्स हो जाए. सो दिस इज द डेडलाइन फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर एक्सटेंडेड स्कोप. हाउएवर, लोन्स अंडर द स्कीम कैन बी डिस्बर्स टिल जून 30. इट मीन्स जो ये मार्च 31 की डेट है, ये क्या है? ये एप्लीकेशन की डेट है दैट MNCs कैन अप्लाई, बट दिस approved application can disburse, or the loan under this approved application can disburse up to June 30. So government is trying to increase the demand, government is trying to support the MSMEs to fulfill the upcoming demands, in definitely in order to boost the economy. And if we see the pace of this particular credit guarantee scheme in last few months, we can easily see that the scheme has a slow growth. MSMEs are actually not availing the benefit under this credit guarantee scheme, and that is why government has no other option but just to extend the scope and time limit for this credit guarantee scheme. Now let us see the next clip. Indian Overseas Bank exit PCA after 6 years. So finally, the Reserve Bank of India on Wednesday took the public sector lender Indian Overseas Bank IOB out of the framework of the PCA. What is PCA? Prompt Corrective Action Framework. So those banks who do not have the very good financial health, whose NPAs are very high, they generally kept under the PCA category. So under PCA category, banks lending facility or lending rights are actually restricted. They are asked to maintain the fiscal prudence, fiscal discipline while performing the lending activities, so that their financial parameters can improve. So recently, government has actually removed the 2 other banks from the PCA category. You have to name those 2 banks, and we have discussed that if this particular bank has been removed from PCA category, in future we will see other banks are also being removed from this PCA category. So this particular pace or the momentum has been followed, and now IOB, Indian Overseas Bank, has been removed and has been kept out of the prompt corrective action category or the framework over the improved financial and credit profile. So this decision gives the Chennai-based lender more freedom on lending, especially to the corporation, and growing the network subject to the prescribed norms. And after the removal of IOB, there is only one bank that left in PCA regime, and that is Mumbai-based Central Bank of India. तो सेंट्रल बैंक ऑफ इंडिया केवल अभी पीसीए की कैटेगरी में बचा है. रिसेंटली 2 बैंक को, आज की न्यूज़ से पहले 2 बैंक को पीसीए की कैटेगरी से हटाया गया था. आज आईओबी को हटा दिया गया है और केवल एक बैंक बचा है. इट इज़ मोस्ट लाइकली दैट दिस पर्टिकुलर बैंक विल ऑल्सो गेट रिमूव और आउट ऑफ दिस पीसीए category. So that's all for today, students. If you want lecture PDF, you can join my Telegram channel. You can also follow me on other social media platforms. If you have any query and suggestion, please write in comment section below. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you.